Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update from RAU'S.
Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper analysis from the perspective of UPSC examination. Today we are going to take up Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 24th of May 2020. The articles which we are going to cover today are displayed on the screen. Let's now begin the discussion.
We are very proud to announce RAU'S hybrid online program to prepare for Civil Services Examination 2021. The program is designed in such a manner that it will ensure same quality content at your home as we deliver here at our campuses. It also gives you the flexibility to join our campuses as and when you are ready to join the physical class program at our learning centers. Our GSI hybrid course has been designed to provide 360-degree guidance. First, our teaching covers everything from basics to advanced, and given the dynamic nature of the exam, we focus on both static as well as current affairs. Second, we focus a lot on discussions and doubt solving to be able to impart real understanding of issues important for the exam, and so we promote group discussions and make expert doubt solving available to you at all times. Third, testing is another key requirement to crack the exam. The course gives you ample practice through class tests and UPSC level test series. And finally, just before the prelims and mains exams, we help you revise everything important through our highly targeted revision modules. If you want more information, you can log on to our website and download the GSI hybrid brochure. The description of the video has the link for that as well. You can also get in touch with us using your preferred way. All the necessary details are given in the brochure, so please refer to that. From the entire team of RAU'S, we wish you all the very best and we will be happier to partner with you in your journey of success. Now we will start today's discussion with a very important aspect of international relation, especially in last 5 years, that is Belt and Road Initiative. And that is because a very important news appears on page number 9, that is the page dealing with the world affairs. China suggests shift in BRI approach amid debt concerns. Now China has hinted at a shift in how it will pursue its signature Belt and Road Initiative amid growing concerns about debt repayments from many partner countries because of COVID-19 pandemic. Now whenever a news appears with respect to Belt and Road Initiative, there are two perspectives to it. Either the concerns related to India because of this China-Pakistan economic corridor and its passage through Jammu and Kashmir or Pak-occupied Kashmir. And the second reason why it appears in newspaper most frequently is the default of countries like Sri Lanka and Pakistan and various other countries on the loans which they have taken from China. And because of their inability to pay, either they have to restructure their loans or they have to give some land or the asset itself to China for 50 years, 100 years to avoid the default. So these are the two circumstances. Now in this discussion, we are not going to take up this perspective because it has already been covered a lot of time in our DNS. But rather in this discussion, what we'll do is that we'll try to understand the broader framework of Belt and Road Initiative, what are its components. Then we'll try and understand what is the need for a mega project like Belt and Road Initiative both for China as well as the beneficiary countries, and what are its stated goal as officially stated by China. And then finally we will move on and understand that how it has performed in last 4 to 5 years, given that already a lot of projects are going on and few projects like the Gwadar port in Pakistan and Hambantota in Sri Lanka have already been completed. And that will be understood through taking a case study of financing structure of a project in Pakistan to understand how that this is a win situation for China but a lose situation for a country which has opted to take a loan, in this case Pakistan. Now, generally speaking, One Belt, One Road or Belt and Road Initiative is a project that focuses on improving connectivity and cooperation among various countries across Asia, Africa and Europe. And you can see that it has two components. Now, first one is Silk Road Economic Belt. which is a mega project based on land and will connect China with Central Asia and finally to Europe. So, the investments and infrastructural development in this project will deal with basically enhancement of transport facilities, power grid lines. In essence, it will ensure a greater integration of this region with China. And the second component is Maritime Silk Road, which is a sea-based project which will connect China's southern coast with that of Mediterranean, African, South Asian and East South Asian countries. Since this project is based in sea and hence the primary strategy of this component of the Belt and Road Initiative project would be to enhance the port related facilities and infrastructure in various countries. So this is the broader framework of Belt and Road Initiative as stated by China. Let us now try and understand what benefits will it have for China as well as for the countries in which these projects have been started. Now, first and foremost is that Asian countries need massive infrastructure development. And what does infrastructural development includes? It includes transport, which encompasses in itself railways, roadways, and port development. Then another important component of infrastructure is access to energy, electricity, power. And the Asian countries are deprived both as far as production as well as transmission is concerned. And then finally, when we talk about fourth industrial revolution, we cannot migrate into that without efficient telecommunication. And China has designed its Belt and Road Initiative in such a way that it takes care of the financing needs of all of these sectors. Now, the image which you are seeing on your screen has been taken from a study conducted by Asian Development Bank in 2017, which estimated that various countries of Asian continent need $26 trillion investment in next 10 years to be able to develop themselves. And the maximum requirement in that, as you can see in the pie chart, is in the power sector and followed by that in transport sector. And that is where the strength of Belt and Road Initiative lies because while financing the projects, it clearly lays down priority of transport and power followed by telecommunication. So this was the benefit for the country which is a beneficiary of Belt and Road Initiative. But apart from this, there is no other benefit to the country. Rather, there are a lot of demerits which we shall see in the analysis part. But let us now first consider that why China, sitting on a pile of cash, decided to invest so much in the countries not only surrounding China but far distant from it. Now, the first and foremost reason of initiating the land component of Belt and Road Initiative, as you saw in the map, was to integrate the Chinese western frontiers into its national economy. Because not only is it politically unstable because of various separatist movements going on there, but it is also a landlocked portion, because of which its industrial and commercial development has been hindered. And because of that, the western region of China is extremely underdeveloped, which leads to extreme inequality if we compare the eastern coast of China to the western region of China. And that is why China has decided to integrate its western region with Central Asian and then finally with European countries. Now, what China plans to do is that from the already existing eastern centers, which are the production hubs of China, these newly developed multimodal transport centers of Western China will act as a hub which will then propel Chinese products into Central Asian countries and European countries. Then comes a very important issue of saturation of development level. Now you need to understand that China has developed massively in last 2 to 3 decades. And hence, because of this development, it has generated a lot of capacity in almost all the sectors of industry. But since the production has peaked to a level, now in an economy, the investors see the forecasts of development and the growth. Now, keeping in the growth of 2005 to 2015, Chinese investors invested a lot in capacity creation. But the growth actually saturated after 2015 and 16 and actually declined which is normal for any country growing at such a rapid rate as China for 2 to 3 decades, growth is bound to decline. But now, since the overcapacity has been created, the Chinese have thought of Belt and Road Initiative and various projects which will be initiated under BRI to make use of this overcapacity which has been created. Now, take a simple example of JCB machines. Let's say that a Chinese investor projecting Chinese growth in 2020 to be at 10% per annum started a factory for a production of these heavy excavators at that rate. But actually, the growth declined, and now there is no need of these excavators because the economy is not growing at that level. But these machines have already been produced and they need to be sold in the market. And hence, through Belt and Road Initiative, these extra capacities which have been created will be utilized. Also, the well integrated parts of the world are now flooded with Chinese products. But the regions which are not so well integrated with China, for example, landlocked regions of Central Asia, they are not as well integrated with China as India or Bangladesh is. And hence, in the search of newer markets and penetrating them further with the Chinese products, China wants to integrate these economies through better transport links. Now, apart from this, there are two reasons which have not been mentioned in the Chinese communications, but obviously the world knows that these are the two main reasons behind creation of Belt and Road Initiative. Now, first one is that China intends to create its own hegemony. Now, it is economically and commercially extremely powerful, and it is almost at the same level at United States. And now it wants to take the place of United States in other arenas of geopolitics as well. And that is the main reason behind creation of One Belt One Road project. Now, how will China achieve this hegemon status in Asia? Now, you see that when these loans are extended to the beneficiary countries, they are usually extended in renminbi. And hence, what China is doing is that it is increasing the usage of renminbi across the world, and it is actually challenging the status of dollar in the global affairs. Now, as the acceptance and usage of renminbi increases across the world, it will obviously lead to increase in the status of China. And then another outcome of the Belt and Road Initiative is that enhancement in uses of Chinese standards across the world. You may ask how other people will accept Chinese standards. Now, it can be demonstrated very simply by a very easy example. Now, China has taken upon itself to develop power transmission lines in Central Asian countries. But the standards of wires, voltages, currents, everything which is being used in these ultra high voltage electricity transmission projects in these countries are totally based on Chinese standards. And these countries, being beneficiary of Chinese loan and being constructed by Chinese companies, have no other option but to accept the Chinese standards. And similarly, the more projects these countries take upon themselves, the more they have to follow the Chinese standards. So this is how China is increasingly becoming a hegemon in Asia. And then finally, this is a very important aspect of geostrategy, and that is known as Malacca dilemma. And for understanding the Malacca dilemma, we'll have to take a look at the map. Now, if you try to locate the Malacca Strait, it lies over here. Now, the problem with China is that it is energy guzzler. It is one of the highest consumer of energy and especially the fossil fuel across the world. Apart from that, most of the trade which China does passes through Malacca Strait. So on one hand, energy is going to China through this route. The finished products is going across various nations including India, Africa and various other countries through Malacca Strait. Now, from the perspective of prelims examination, you should know that the Malacca Strait is a narrow and congested waterway separating Indonesia and Malaysia. Now, for China, the strategic significance of this strait increases every year. At present, approximately 60% of China's crude oil imports originate in Middle East and passes through Malacca Strait. Now, China has officially stated a lot of times that certain major powers were bent on controlling the strait and are trying to threaten the Chinese nation. And obviously, the indication were towards India and USA, which increased the patrolling in this region. Now, currently, China does not have the naval capacity to challenge combined forces of US and India if they decide to block the Malacca Strait. But if India and US block the Malacca Strait, the Chinese economy will simply collapse. And that is where the importance of Belt and Road Initiative and especially the China Pakistan Economic Corridor component of it comes into play, because now it has created a deep water port at Gwadar, and it has created one of the world's best transport infrastructure across Pakistan. And in any situation where the Malacca Strait is threatened, China simply has this shorter way to avoid this disruption. So that is the geostrategic component of the Belt and Road Initiative. Now, it is important to understand that what are the stated objectives and goals of Belt and Road initiatives according to China. Now, China has stated that it wants to create free trade zones across the world on its own financing. It wants to enhance the financing for infrastructure creation, which we'll see how it does. Then it wants to strengthen the transport infrastructure, which we know it has done in Pakistan and Sri Lanka. Then it wants to commercialize, or you can say it wants to monetize the natural resources across the world. Now, this is the stated objective, which says that China will actively seek out natural resources, for example, the ores of various minerals and mining, wherever it tries to invest. And then finally, there is a cultural component to it as well, which talks about deepening of cultural exchanges in the region with that of China. Now, since the time the Belt and Road Initiative has been launched, it has been quite a while. And now we have enough literature and data through which we can actually assess the effectivity of Belt and Road Initiative. Now, first and foremost is that all the countries which have seen mega infrastructure project funded by China, they have not seen any return from these projects. And especially the case in point being Gwadar port in Pakistan and Hambantota port at Sri Lanka. Now, there is no doubt about the fact that the projects which China has taken up is of the highest quality across the world. There is no denying the fact. They are not only deep sea ports, but they are also equipped with modern technology and also exceptional capacity of Chinese to meet the timelines. No one can beat that. So there is no denying the fact that China has played indeed a great role in creation of these infrastructure. But the problem is that these countries which we are talking about, like Pakistan and Sri Lanka, they are not manufacturers. And the port facilities which they already had, they were also not fully utilized. For example, Pakistan already had a large port at Karachi, and similarly, Sri Lanka had a large port at Colombo, which were not running at their full capacity, and hence there is no need to create a new port. But the Chinese offered loan to these countries, and these ports were created. And now you can go on the internet and search that what is the revenue generation of these ports. You will be surprised to know that in 1 year, the only ships which have arrived at Gwadar port are Chinese ships and submarines going on Chinese military or navy missions. And similarly, Hambantota. And hence, these projects are commercially unviable, which creates its own problem. We'll see how. Then there is a growing evidence appearing across the world that these investments are not to enhance the capacity of various countries as far as industrial development is concerned, but rather these investments and the locations are chosen by the designs of geopolitics. For example, Gwadar was chosen because adjacent to that, India was constructing its own port in Iran, which was Chabahar. And similarly, Hambantota was chosen because of its close proximity to India. And then finally, the issue of debt diplomacy. Now, you need to understand the whole mechanism followed by Belt and Road Initiative to grasp this concept. Now, what happens is that China approaches a country, let's say Pakistan, and offers the loan. But these loans have a condition. And those conditions are that for a development for which this loan has been granted, that has to be conducted in PPP mode or partnership mode with a set of Chinese firms. So basically, China transfers the loans, which are ultimately transferred back to China in form of its state companies carrying out the actual construction. Not only that, even the man force which is utilized in these construction projects are mostly Chinese. And this is not to be confused with the top level management. The lower level staff of these construction companies are brought from China and they are utilized there, devoiding the beneficiary country of any palpable benefit apart from creation of infrastructure which they do not have capacity to use. Now we'll demonstrate it with a direct example of Pakistan. Now this is a financing structure of Pakistan's Port Qasim power project. Now wherever you see the red color, that is China, and wherever you see the blue color, that is Pakistan. So Pakistan is here and this is Qatar. So the three funding agencies of China, which are the Export Import Bank of China, Sinosure, which is the state funded insurance company from China, gave out a loan of $1.56 billion to Pakistan. Now, this Pakistan Power Authority, which is the authority responsible for production of power, entered into contract with Power Construction Corporation of China to carry out this project by formulating a special purpose vehicle containing 51% equity of China and then another set of funding from Qatar. Where is Pakistan in this? Except for the fact that Pakistani Power Authority entered into contract. Now, what has happened with Hambantota? The port was created which was not economically viable, which means that it was not generating its own revenues. And then, when the Sri Lankan government found it extremely difficult to pay back the EMIs to China, Sri Lankan government leased out the Hambantota port to China for 99 years. And this was done in 2017. So you can see that how strategically the Chinese invested around $1 billion in Sri Lanka and got hold of a extremely strategically very important deep water port within few hundred kilometers of India's coast. And that is how China is increasing its footprint across the world with the help of Belt and Road Corridor. And this is called debt diplomacy. Now, in the normal situations when countries are not able to pay back on Chinese loans, how can you even think of the repayments in times of COVID 19? And hence, in recent weeks, China has faced calls from countries in Asia and Africa to delay or waive debt repayments. And that is why this news has appeared. Let's now move on to the next discussion. Now, this particular news appears on page number 4, which talks about the issuance of heat wave warning in Odisha. Now, heat wave has now become a recurring phenomena as far as the climate of India is concerned. And it is just not any vague, random, or general phenomena. It is a very specified, the conditions for which have been well laid out by IMD. So, what we'll do is we shall first discuss the conditions laid out by IMD for the declaration of heat waves. We'll try and understand how these heat waves are declared in the country with the help of a temperature map of past year, which is 2019, which was the worst year for heat wave in the last decade. And then we'll try to understand that what are the conditions which are favorable for heat wave like situation. Now, obviously by the term you understand that heat wave situation will be a weather phenomena characterized by extremely hot and dry conditions. So keep this in mind when we talk about the favorable situations. And IMD has laid out criteria which it follows for the declaration of warning as far as the heat waves are concerned. Now, first and foremost, the conditions vary for plains, coasts, and hills. Because what is hot for hills and high altitude can be a very low temperature for plains and vice versa. So the cutoff temperature for plains is 40 degrees Celsius, for coast it is 37 degrees Celsius, and for hills it is 30 degrees Celsius. So if the maximum temperature of the day of any station situated in plains does not crosses 40 degrees Celsius, it doesn't matter how much deviation from normal it has observed, there is no question of declaring heat waves. Similarly, if the mercury doesn't crosses 37 degrees Celsius at a coastal location in the country, IMD will not even think of declaring the heat wave. Now, if these conditions are met at these locations, let's say in a town of Ajmer, the temperature becomes 45 degrees Celsius, which means that it has already crossed 40 degrees Celsius. Now the second condition will kick in, and that is divided on two observations. Now, first is based on departure from normal temperature, and the second one is based on actual maximum temperature. And if either of the conditions are met after the condition 1 has already been met, the heat wave and warning is declared. Now, as far as the deviation from or departure from normal temperature is concerned, if that is more than 4.5 degrees Celsius, then the heat wave shall be declared. And similarly, the severe heat wave when the deviation is more than 6.4 degrees Celsius. Similarly, in plains, if the temperature is higher than 45 degrees Celsius, it doesn't matter how much the deviation is, heat wave warning shall be given out by the IMD and local agencies, because it is considered that if the mercury has crossed 45 degrees Celsius, the situation has become unfit for the human beings. Let us understand this with a real life example. So these are the two snapshots taken from IMD website of 31st May 2019, which means almost a year ago, which was the peak of heat wave last year. Now map 1 shows the actual maximum temperature observed across various stations in the country. And you can see that these plain regions are red because they have already crossed the 40 degrees Celsius, and hence all the numbers higher than 40 have been designated with red color because they have crossed the condition 1. But as we saw that there is another condition which remains to be satisfied, and that is deviation from the normal temperature. So for the same day, the deviation from the normal temperature has also been plotted in another map. And you can see that deviation in the northwest region of the country is 4.5, 4.8, 5.5, which is more than 4.5 degrees Celsius. Similarly, in the hinterland and in the central regions of the country, the deviation is around 7 degrees Celsius, which is more than 4.5 degrees Celsius. And similarly, the IMD gave out the notification the same day declaring these regions as heat wave affected regions. So after having understood the conditions for the declaration of heat wave, let us now understand the favorable conditions for the genesis of heat waves. Now the first and foremost condition is the already existing hot and dry air over certain region. That air could be transported as well, which is the case right now because of the Amphan cyclone. Now you know that extremely powerful cyclone emerged in the Bay of Bengal and followed this trajectory. And you also know that these cyclones are nothing but low pressure systems. If extremely powerful low pressure is generated here, then on the ground surface, the wind circulation in this part of the region will be disrupted and the wind will start to blow in this direction to fill up the gap which has been created by the moving cyclone. And hence, what it will do is that in this region of the country, it will bring extremely hot and dry continental air mass of Pakistan region. So the transportation and the prevalence of hot and dry air over a region is one of the basic criteria. Then the second is that there should be absence of moisture in the upper atmosphere. The presence of moisture restricts the temperature to increase after a certain level. Now this you have to tell us in the comment section that why the presence of moisture restricts the rise of temperature. Then another very important favorable condition for heat wave is the presence of anticyclonic flow over that area. Now anticyclonic means the divergence of air at a lower level, whereas the cyclonic condition means the convergence of air at a lower level. Now why do we need an anticyclonic flow over an area? Because let's say that this is the region which we are considering. We know that as the air subsides, it gets heated adiabatically, whereas as the air rises up, it gets cooled adiabatically. Now, we know that as the temperature of an air parcel increases, its capacity to hold on to the moisture increases, and hence it creates drier conditions. Whereas when a parcel of air rises, its capacity to hold moisture reduces and it gets saturated, and that is why you have a rainfall where the winds converge. And we don't want that, and that is why presence of anticyclonic flow or subsiding air is one of the conditions. And finally, a clear sky absolutely devoid of clouds is a mandatory thing, because It allows the maximum insulation to reach the surface to allow for maximum heating, and hence it will be easier for the conditions to form a heat wave like scenario. Now, these concepts are generally not given in the books, and hence it is important to keep track of the current affairs to understand these. And finally, it is important to consider that why is advisories and warnings are issued by IMD, because the heat waves have extremely grave consequences on human health. Now, first and foremost is the formation of heat rash, which is quite immediate, and it is also known as sunburn phenomena, which results in pinkish skin resulting in burning of skin and pain sensation. Then heat syncope is a medical term for fainting or passing out, which in mild form results in vertigo, headache or drowsiness. But you must have read in newspaper people collapsing at traffic signals, and that is because of heat syncope. Then as the temperature increased 39 degrees Celsius, and exposure to that temperature combined with lack of proper hydration leads to heat cramps and also to heat exhaustion, which is manifested in the form of fatigue, weakness, dizziness, headache, nausea. And then finally, the gravest form of all is heat stroke, where the body fails to thermoregulate the temperature, and then the temperature of the body shoots beyond 104 degrees Fahrenheit, resulting into seizures and coma. So these are the health impacts of exposure to heat waves. And that is why it is very important to take proper measures, which is preventing direct exposure to the hot air and keeping yourself well hydrated if there is a need to go out unprotected. Then this article appears on page number 11. Adenovirus COVID-19 vaccine found safe. Induces immune responses, which is quite exciting news in our fight against COVID-19. Now, by the time a clear winner does not emerges, it is not important to delve into each and every vaccine and the mechanism behind it. But right now, it is important for us to understand two key terms on which this vaccine is based, and that is recombination technology or recombinant DNA, and the second one is adenovirus. Now, this vaccine uses recombinant adenovirus type 5 vector that carries the genetic material that codes for spike glycoprotein of virus, which is coronavirus. We'll first understand what recombinant technology is. Now, recombinant DNA or rDNA are DNA molecules formed in laboratory by following the methods of genetic recombination to bring together genetic material from multiple sources, and hence creating sequences that would otherwise not have been possible. So, in this case, what they have done is that they have taken an adenovirus, which are a group of common viruses that causes common fever, cough, and cold, which every one of us suffers seasonally, and we know that they are not fatal. So, what they have done is that they have taken the genetic material of adenovirus, which is not fatal, and they have modified a few sequence of adenovirus so that the adenovirus itself produces the spike glycoprotein of coronavirus. So what happens is that the coronavirus produces the spike protein through which the immunity is generated. But we know that coronavirus is also fatal and extremely dangerous. So we cannot induce the live coronavirus into everyone to get this immunity response. And hence, what we have done is that we have taken a harmless virus, modified it so that it produces the protein which is produced by the coronavirus, so that to enable the human body to produce the same immune response. Then there is this news appearing on page number 12. Why are India and Nepal fighting over Kalapani? Now, this news has already been covered in DNS dated 12th of May by me. And in that, the boundary dispute between India and Nepal elaborately discussed, along with the main reason related to the Kali River and how it affects the dispute between India and Nepal. So, it is advised that you go through the DNS dated 12th of May to understand the issue. Similarly, this article appears on page number 12, what explains the India-China border flare-up. And similarly on page number 1, no let-up intention along LAC with China. Recently, Nagendra sir in DNS dated 20th of May 2020 did a very beautiful and detailed analysis of the relationship of India and China as far as the border dispute is concerned, in which he traced the historical development of the dispute by highlighting the origins of the Himalayan border dispute, giving out four reasons, as well as in the same discussion, he brought the Bhutan into the picture and how that impacts the overall equation between India and China. So it is advised that you go through the DNS dated 20th of May done by Nagendra sir to understand the whole issue. Now, if you remember, we used to solve a lot of questions in our DNS. Now, right now, all these questions are available on ELEARN platform in a very interactive manner. So, it is advised that you go to ELEARN, register yourself for free, and solve these quizzes along with various other free quizzes there. Now, the question for the day for 23rd of May was consider the following states Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Assam, West Bengal, and Sikkim. Which of the above states share border with Nepal? And obviously, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, along with West Bengal and Sikkim, share the border, but Assam does not share the border with Nepal, which leads us to the right answer B 1, 2, 4, and 5 only. Similarly, the question of the day for today is consider the following statements. The subject of disaster management has been placed in Union list. Statement 2. The Epidemic Diseases Act 1897 enables the states to take necessary actions to prevent the outbreak or spread of dangerous epidemic diseases. Which of the statements given above are correct? A. 1 only, B. 2 only, C. Both 1 and 2, neither 1 nor 2.